Okay, hello and welcome to the fourth and final design cycle video. We are going to talk about criteria D, and that is the evaluating. This is when we've gone through the entire design cycle. Our product is now finished, whether it's a challenge, whether it's something that you created that's tangible, you're holding in your hands. We now need to evaluate it and see, hey, is this a good design? Were we successful? Is there anything that we should have changed? Should we have done something differently, or what we did is good? And what is that based on? Is that the feedback that we think we got from what we observed, or is this the feedback that we actually got from our client? And so here we go. Criteria D. Evaluate. I put these ones on top because it was backwards. So in our design cycle, if we look at our design cycle here, right, it's design, evaluate, explain, and explain. And so here, what I've done on the rubric is I've kind of looked at and see what does it want us to do for criteria D. Always go back to your rubric, okay? Design, detailed, and relevant methods. Okay, again, here it's the same thing, which generate data to measure the success of your solution. That's what we're going to talk about first. Okay, I've also looked at the command terms and I've made them in red. There's only 3 here that come from the rubric, and that's design, evaluate, and explain. So if you're not sure exactly what the rubric is asking you to do, please go to the command terms and read them over so that you're 100% certain what you need to do. Okay, so back to this presentation. D1 focuses on creating specific measurable testing methods to evaluate whether your design solutions actually work. So what does that mean? Well, we need to actually design testing methods. So how are we going to know that what we created actually worked? Okay, so there's a few tests that you can design or create in this case. So here are some examples. You can create a stability test, a durability test, a usability test, functionality test. If you're creating some sort of a new food product, maybe it's a taste test or a shelf life test, or the famous one that everybody likes to go to is the user feedback survey. So to give you an example of a stability test, here's one. Place the stand on a flat surface with a phone. Tilt the surface incrementally by 5 degrees up to 30 degrees and record the angle at which the stand tips over. Repeat 5 times and calculate the averages. So this is a stability test. If you're going to test the product to see if it was stable or not, this is something that you can actually create. It's very specific. You could measure it because you can do it 5 times and see the results, and that evaluates your product if your design actually works. Okay, for durability test, you could design something like this. You want to see how durable something is, whether it's going to break easily or not. Apply 500 grams of pressure to stand for 30 seconds. Okay, so you want to see for 30 seconds it can stand with that much pressure. 20 times. Measure any deformation using calipers before and after. Like grade 7 had to do that tower challenge, and they were putting something heavy on top of that tower to see if it would break, right? So it's called a durability test. So you could do something like that for D1. A usability test. For example, ask 8 students to complete 3 tasks without guidance. Time how long each task takes and count the number of errors or taps needed. Okay, that is a usability test that you can come up with for as an example. Functionality test. Here's an example. Run the app through 50 quiz questions and record number of correct score calculations, instances of crashes, loading times for each screen time. So this is obviously if you're designing an app and you want to see, does it function? You run it through 50 quiz questions and then you can record your findings. Here's a taste test. Let's say we created some sort of a new food product. Conduct blind taste testing with 20 participants. Have them rate taste, texture, and overall appeal on a scale from 1 to 10. Record the data in a spreadsheet. And this is where you show that spreadsheet. So you're designing a testing method for D1. Here's another one, shelf life for food, right? Store 5 bars at room temperature and check for mold, texture changes, and smell every 3 days for 21 days. Document with photos and notes. So this is just, you're not actually doing it. You're just saying that I've created this testing method. That's what D1 is all about, okay? And then the survey, create a 10-question survey from 1 to 5, asking about ease of use, engagement, learning value. So a lot of you guys could have already created something for your client or for those that you created a design challenge for, and you could ask them at the end, like, what did you think? Was it fun? Was it engaging? Did it work? How was our collaboration skills? So on and so forth. Okay, so that survey is always an easy go-to piece to do that D1 part of this criteria. All right, so that's D1 in a nutshell. For D2, we're going to now, using that testing method, one of these, whichever one you decide to create, you're actually going to evaluate the success of the solution. So that means doing the test, looking at the results from that test. Let's say you did a survey. You have to now look at the survey. What did the survey show you? And you have to evaluate it, which means looking to see whether or not your product or your solution was a success. Did it actually work based on what people who tried it said? Okay, so that's the part where you're going to evaluate and write about what the feedback was all about. Okay, or if you're doing a durability test, you're going to test it and then evaluate it. Was that product? When did that tower collapse? How much weight was added before that tower broke, right? That's just kind of the evaluation process of what happened, okay? For criteria D3, explain how the solution improved throughout the design process by comparing different versions. So maybe your first version was this, but then you improved it by tweaking it or changing it. Maybe you got some feedback. Maybe your teacher came up to you and suggested something for your second version, right? And then you have to show the evidence of development. That's what it's all about. So what do you need to show? Well, you can show these things. What changed between different versions or the prototypes, right? So if you're building that tower, maybe your first prototype didn't have enough tape or needed additional supporting structures, right? And maybe your second one, with some feedback from whomever gave you that feedback, maybe you read an article, maybe you watched the video, maybe you heard a teacher talk to you. What did you do and what changed between your early prototype to the actual finished product? This is what you talk about in D3. You can also say why you made those changes. Maybe you made them based on the testing. Maybe you made those changes based on the feedback or problems that you faced as you were building your product. And then third thing that you can add in this section is evidence that the changes actually made it better. And the common format for D3, you can start with what was wrong. And you can start here like this. The problem was, and then you say what the problem was. What I changed is I modified this, or I added, or I removed, blah, 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 and whatever you did there. And then you can talk about why I changed it based on testing or based on feedback that showed blah, 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 blah. And you talk about why you changed it here. And then the result. This improved the solution because and then maybe you have some evidence to support that. So for D3, again, it's that reflective piece with a little bit of structure to guide you. The key is showing iterative development with evidence-based improvements, not just saying, I made it better, blah, 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 right? But improving it with data and clear explanations. Now, the word iterative, I actually bolded it. I want to show you guys. In design, iteration is a cyclical process of refining and improving a product or design through repeated cycles of prototyping, testing, and feedback. So it's almost like in the design cycle itself. It's a whole iteration that we're going through, iterative process. You start, you get some feedback, you tweak it, you change it, you try it again, maybe that didn't work. You go back to it and you go in the circle, you create different versions each time, okay? So the key is to show that iterative development with evidence, okay? And how you've improved your product. And that's D3, folks, okay? I hope that you're so far following along and you're finding this stuff useful. Last but not least is D4, which is explain the impact of the solution. So the impact, was your solution actually, did it make a difference? Was it impactful? So in D4, you need to explain how the solution affects the client or the target audience's life, work, or experience. You can also talk about why this impact matters. Like, why does it matter what we do in this design challenge? And don't just think of it on a small scale within our classroom or within our school. On a larger scale within our community or in the world, in the workforce. Why does it matter? Why are we learning about this? Both positive impacts, so what were some of the benefits, and potential negative impacts. What were some of the limitations or drawbacks? It's something you can explain. And lastly, evidence from user feedback, observation, or testing. So I'm going to show you two different examples, and this is what your D4 could look like, okay? So the first one is someone creating a phone stand. My phone stand has a significant positive impact on my target audience's study habits based on user testing with 10 students. 9 reported that the stand allowed them to take notes more easily while watching videos because both hands were free. One student said, I used to prop up my phone against books, but it kept falling. This is so much better. The 30-degree angle also reduced the neck strain. 7 out of 10 users reported less neck discomfort after 30 minutes compared to holding their phone. However, there is a minor negative impact for the 2 left-handed users who found the side cable slot difficult to access. This suggests that while the solution benefits most users, it may inadvertently exclude or inconvenience left-handed individuals, which I hadn't considered in my original design specification. And then the evidence that they could use here, obviously user quotes, you saw the survey data, and the observation notes. That's what was presented in this D4 as a summary of what worked and what didn't. Here's another example, and this is they're designing a water bottle for elementary school children. Okay, my water bottle design has both environmental and behavioral impacts on my target audience. The bright colors and custom name labels created excitement about hydration. Teachers reported 85% of students in the test class were bringing water bottles daily, up from 60% before. One student said, I actually remembered to bring it because it's cool looking. The environmental impact is substantial. If each of the 300 students at the elementary school switched from disposable bottles to reusable ones, it would prevent approximately 54,000 plastic bottles from being discarded annually. My solution directly contributes to creating eco-conscious habits at a young age. However, there is a social impact concern. 3 students from lower income families felt left out because they couldn't afford the $15 custom bottle. One teacher noted this created a subtle division in the classroom between students with the special bottles and those with plain ones. While my intention was positive, the solution may have unintentionally reinforced economic disparities and created social pressure, an impact I hadn't considered but is important to address in future iterations. So, and there's that evidence again. It was teacher observation, environmental calculations, student feedback, and social observations that they used in this kind of final piece that talked about the pros and cons of that water bottle design. And I absolutely love this example because it kind of summarizes the entire design challenge and really allows the designer to reflect on certain areas maybe they can continue to work on if they were to continue this design to make it more inclusive in this case. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is D4, D1 through 4 rather, which is evaluating. I hope you found this video useful. Please remember to constantly go back to your rubric, even beyond the video that you watch with me right now. Always check the rubric. Read the criteria. If something's not clear, go to your command terms. Okay, check out the design cycle. Make sure that you get through all of these steps. And again, if after watching and reading and doing everything that you can, you still don't understand something, please feel free to email me. I'm always here for you. And thank you for your time. Good luck with all of your design digital portfolios and your future challenges. All the best. Take care.